All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it happens to be at the time where you're at. Thank you for joining us for this month's OBT Reading Group. Today, we're going to be reading or talking about the article Making Cognitive Insights on Memory Evident in OBT Projects by Fausto Liriano from the United Bible Society. And I'm excited to share that Fausto is here with us. So if you have questions that you didn't understand something or you want to make a comment to the author, he's here with us. So hopefully that will enrich the conversation. Um, and I hope that everybody has had a chance to read the article. If not, you can still participate as we're going along. But hopefully you've had a chance to interact with it. And like me, maybe you have some questions noted on your copy. And then we can go ahead and get started. I'll just open it up, and if anybody has something they'd like to ask, we can go ahead and get started. Thank you again, Fausto, for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, while people are thinking, I'll go ahead and ask my first question, or it's
Okay.
more of a comment. On page 84, I really liked this phrasing, and so I underlined it. As described in the presentation of our projects, the main reasons behind these efforts include, and this is where my highlighting starts, that traditional storytelling reflects the richness and treasures of a language, and we want to discover the most significant features of these traditions and apply them to Bible translation, developing a faithful, familiar, and thus relevant form. Um, I really like the way that talks about discovering the most significant features of the oral traditions and applying them to Bible translation. So, Fausto, how do you think that has played out? How has that enriched the process for these projects?
Well, first of all, it's an aha moment for some translations because their own tradition have been in some ways rejected from a long time ago, especially in our context in Latin America,
Yeah.
and related to paganism. So, so the first thing that we encounter is that we have to proselytize
Mhm.
to the translators their own oral tradition and push a little bit for them to discover that they can use that in some ways, and then to inform to us uh, about it in context like the Philippines, where I'm working in a cluster of uh, oral Bible translation called Cornerstone. For them doing this match of what they do weekly. We're working with ISNEC, Banao, Masadik, and another languages. All these languages are from the Cordillera region, and they keep all their traditions orally from memory. So they meet every once in a while to chant and then to let someone to flow and tell the stories that has marked their own culture from memory, that and from for them to discover they can do the same with the Bible, starting with the chant. They use different chant for different kind of passages. So if it's a narration, they use a specific chant. If the narration is sad, they use a specific chant.
Mhm.
If the narration is happy, they use a specific chant. If it's poetry, they use a specific chant.
Mhm.
All of that before starting the narration.
Mhm.
So they use, for example, something Salidum Nai for general narrative storytelling. So they chant nine nine salidum nine nine, and then they start narrating.
Mhm.
And every, I don't know, 30, 45 seconds, they repeat the chant again.
Mhm.
And they do the same with their translation.
Mhm.
And It's weird for me because that's not part of the translation, but it's part of the way they do storytelling from memory. And that's a significant feature of their tradition. And even though it's weird for me, for them it's a special element, even though it's the Bible. So that makes it more significant. And we really encounter something that it was weird for me, but I really like. It was surprising at the same time. Is that when we were translating Luke, we decided we don't want to translate genealogy. It's boring. It's names. And when we were discussing that with the translators, they say, "Oh, no. What are you doing?" In our culture, if you want a story to be relevant and to connect with the people, you have to have a genealogy. You have to start with that.
Sure. So
we include that. So learning that and connecting that with Bible translation for me has been a learning process, and at the same time for the translators have been like an aha moment, because they rejected that as part of, telling the Bible or proclaiming or performance the Bible.
So coming from a background of the United Bible Society, how difficult was it for you to wrap your mind around, or maybe you haven't, I don't know, that idea of, you said, but it's not the Bible, that part, that feature of, the chanting, from a UBS background and perspective, was it hard for you to say, in this context, that's okay? Or even the community, what was their reaction to the willingness to include that? Because you said it was weird, but it was good. So maybe if you could unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with UBS. I'm kind of traditional in some respects. So it was weird for me. For the community, it was fantastic. And now that you say it's not, I was reflecting back, it's not part of the Bible. For them it is. It's like when you are laying out a page, you have elements that are not part of the text. You have the page number, chapters, you have the verses, you have the chapters, you have this reference in the side. So after some time, I say, this is the same. They're marking the text with chanting. And that makes the text relevant for the people, because without the chant, it's not something that they can tell within the community. They cannot storytell something in the community context without the chanting, because the chanting is the way to call everybody to participate into it.
And how hard was it to get them to embrace that at the beginning? Because you mentioned about the years of the mission teaching, missionary movement teaching, well, that's pagan, so you can't do that. And we've seen the same thing in our context here in Mexico, where traditional forms were discouraged, and good Christians wouldn't do those things, and having to have conversations about what is redeemable, what is good, what are these things that are traditional that can be of great importance, especially in acceptance of an engagement with the scripture.
Yeah, I think in some contexts it's more difficult than others. In Latin America, it's really difficult because they have made a separation between the Christian culture and their own culture. So it took us some time, maybe a year, to let them discover their own oral tradition and accept that and include that into the performance. In the Philippines, it was natural. Actually, it was more a learning process for the consultants, the facilitators, and the staff of the Philippines Bible Society that for the community. It was a shock because the first time and I can send a picture to you and then you send it to the group. The first time that we met to this is what we do. The first week we do internalization and translation, and they start the memorization. The second week we do the back translation, then the consultant check in, and they continue with the memorization. At the end, we prepare the stage for performance, and all the translators have to tell the passages. So it was really surprising for us that for the performance, they all came with their traditional clothing, even the men, and that's just a tongue. And it was like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? Even pastors, and we were like, okay. They said, this is the way we perform. This is the way we do storytelling. So some cultures have preserved that, and I think it's more a shock and a learning process for the strangers, the one that come and motivate the Bible translation and help them to do the translation. In some others, we have to force the translators in some ways. I don't like force, but it's in some ways what we do to discover their own oral tradition. And after that is they make the connection because it's something that is related to their language without foreign elements. I mean, the traditional storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim.
Yeah, just a comment. Yeah, we've had similar experiences. We just thought it was a performance style, So in Johannesburg, there were some language groups, 6 language groups living in the area, and we did this introduction workshop for the Southern Baptists. This is years ago. And at the final, we have a final kind of show. Everybody tells the story in their language, and all the storytellers had a processional and a recessional dance. So they all kind of strutted, rather than just have one storyteller all on the stage by themselves. The whole group, like 3 or 4 people, came and kind of shuffled or danced, singing, and then the storyteller told the story, and then they all left in a very similar manner. And we just thought, okay, that's style. And then we were in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and met somebody. We did another intro workshop there, and this was early on, and I met someone from the Tewa language that's right there in Albuquerque area, and he was being trained as a traditional storyteller, and he said that for them, they start the storytelling by upturning a drum. So the drum is hollow on the underside, and they turn it over, and it's like, okay, here comes the good things, or something like that. And I asked him, would that be, it was at a biblical storytelling workshop, so I asked, would that be appropriate to use for a Bible storytelling? And he said they've thought about that, but they're still trying to work it out. I mean, this was over 10 years ago, so maybe they've worked it out. But yeah, I can see there being some of this, like what's performance style, and then it has to be there, for not just for style, but for saying something about the story. So are you saying among the Eatnig, then it's more like it has to be there because this is the way we do storytelling rather than just style.
Yeah, I think it has to be there. It's the conventional way to do it within the community. And reflecting deeper on that too is the way they mark the pace for memorization at the same time. Because for the community, the storytelling have to be from memory. They cannot read anything. They cannot, put an audio or something. It's a community time. I felt I should bring some pictures for that, but I didn't know if that was appropriate. I'm gonna send it to Chris and he send it to the group. Pictures of the community and the storytelling, what they do. They have to do some gongs too before they start the
I think Fausto has frozen on my screen. Okay.
You hear me now?
There you are.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, it looks like Fausto is frozen.
What was the last?
Oh, sorry. There you are.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Seems like my internet have some problems, so I'm changing. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What was the last thing you hear?
Not much.
You were
Okay.
sharing. You were going to
About
share pictures with Chris,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I'm gonna send.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm gonna send those pictures to Chris. So it's part of the storytelling. Have to be there. It's not just style.
Yeah.
So they appreciate that as part of the performance and as part of the passage. In some ways, it's like, if I reflect that and pass it to, book binding and page layout, I think it is the same. And that's reflecting on that. Maybe Jim and Janet and Chris know more about it. Reflecting on that, I don't know if we have going deeper into the layout of the page in orality. What are the elements that mark segments and chapters and verses and pericopes?
Yeah.
Because we accept that as part of the page. Yeah. And actually we say, oh, how cool, this page is so good. It's a pleasure to read this. Yeah. But when it's happening in orality, it's like, oh my gosh, that is not part of the Bible. So I don't know if you know about an article, someone that have written about laying out in orality, that would be good to read and discuss too.
Did a presentation on a topic related to that, and there's an article.
Okay.
I'll find it and send it to you.
Thank you.
Getting to the back to the article, I have two questions. So on page 85, so there's two parts here. So in this article, we focus on how we use memory in the design of the translation projects. So I'd like to hear more about using memory in the design of the translation projects, and then follow up to that. Now that the projects have been around for a few years, have the translators been able to recall the translations from the early stages of the projects? Like how is that continuing as you're moving forward?
Yes. Let me start with the second question. Yes, they remember. I would say like 96% of the text, of the memorized text. I know that because we did a recording of the Book of Mark with the Guatemalan project and did some professional recording with the Philippines project too. And I was kind of counting the amount of text they would remember or forget. And it's about 94-96% that they remember. That's the first part. The second part, Cornerstone was designed by Danny Fitzgerald, and his idea was to do oral Bible translation with what is called OBS. I don't like the term OBS translation, which is storying, as some people call it. Because I didn't know much about storying. For me, I didn't include the free or dynamic element that storying has. And Dan, in some ways, he motivated us to pursue memorization and performance. So the first time I experimented with this was in Guatemala, and for me, I have this how you say in English? ¿Cómo tú dices en inglés cuando tú eres alcohólico y tienes y estás pasando por un proceso de rehabilitación? The withdrawal is what you call it.
Yeah.
I feel this withdrawal because we took all the papers and pencils and Bibles from the room. I was like, oh my gosh, I need the paper. I need the...
Right. I often carry a pencil even when I'm just presenting, just because it gives me something to play with.
Yeah, that's great. I use fountain pens all the time. But then I found out that I knew nothing about memorization. Like, I'm helping people to translate the Bible and memorize, but I know nothing about that. What is the process that takes place in our mind and body when we memorize something? Is the same in all people? Is different? Is different when you're young and when you're old? And what I learned is that in memorization, there is a key element: motivation. It doesn't matter your age. If you're motivated by something and you think that is important, you're going to memorize that. Because I saw people that, they were 65 years old, 70 years old, 55, 57, memorizing something. And I was like, oh my gosh, how would they do that? What is happening in them? So I learned that what was happening in their mind and bodies, because you memorize use your body too, is that motivation was playing a key part on the process. That's not in the article, but it's something that I learned. If you're motivated, you're gonna put all your resources for memorization. So I needed to learn what is the distinction, what different kind of memories do we have, and that's what got me to start reading a bunch of different articles from cognitive scholars about our memory. I learned too that some people within the OBT community reject the language of memorization. So we haven't yet agree on what is memorization and what is internalization. Is internalization memorization is part of the memorization process, or is the memorization process in some ways? What I discovered is that memory internalization help you to memorize, but it's not the same. Maybe some people would disagree, but this is what I believe and what I found. And you have to put all the different memories in place to just embody a passage of the Bible. And that I discovered that with myself. Like if I want to remember something, I need to put the text in different places around me. Not just in my mind. I need to relate the text with my body and what I do, where I look, how I move my hands. And I learned too that that's different in different cultures. So, for example, going back to the Philippines, they have to imagine an audience because part of their motivation is we're gonna chant and we're gonna tell this within the community context. So I need to put myself within the circle. And after the gongs and the chanting, I need to imagine who is going to be around me because each place have a different kind of people, from the mayor of the town to children and so on. I don't know if that answered your question in some ways.
Yeah, I think so. And one thing I really appreciated about the article is that you talked about some of the negative aspects and how things didn't work. But coming out of that, on page 86, you said, it was then that we discovered that for the translators in that project, expectations needed to be clear. They must understand the reasons behind each part of the process and how these relate to memorization. And that they should be reminded continually of both the expectations and the parts of the process. I really resonated with the line, they must understand the reasons behind each part of the process. Because I think too often, if somebody from the outside just comes in and says, this is what you have to do with no explanation, no conversation about what that means, there can be a disconnect and not really an embracing of the process. And so I really appreciate, one, that you said that there were negative things, that it didn't work when you first started, and that two, because of that, you made changes, and part of that was making sure that they understand the why, not just the how.
Yeah, and something that I've been reflecting from last year about that, Chris, and the rest all, is that we do a lot of things here in this level. I don't want to put the translators down, but just I want to be sensitive in what I say. And we discuss, for example, AI or OBT or different types of doing translation. Or if we're going to translate nefesh in a specific way, and we just tell the translators, this is how we're going to use AI. Or, no, nefesh is not soul because this and this scholars say that. You have to translate it in this way. And then that change. And we go back to the community without, let them reflect about the change in some terms or some translation form of doing Bible translation or the use of AI. We don't let the translators reflect on any process. We just, found the best way to do things and go and say, we should do this. So, I feel so bad that we reflected on the negative and the why after sometimes, instead of coming and talk with the translators from the beginning. This is what we want to do. What do you think about that? How do you feel? What do you feel? How do you feel about your own oral tradition? Do you think you're oral? Do you know what is orality? And so on. And we're doing the same with AI. We're doing a lot of discussion on artificial intelligence. And I don't think we are including the translators on that discussion. We haven't included in how is that going to affect their theology, or what do they think about that? Do they feel okay using AI in translation? So we're resolving the problem, and then we're gonna give them this wonderful tool without include them on that. So reflecting on that, part of the of the article, that let us start, giving that gave us a new way to start new clusters. For example, what happened in the Philippines, and we're going to start a new cluster in Malaysia next year. What is happening in Malaysia right now? So we want to include the translators from the beginning in this reflection and listen to them and hear them talk about what they think about memory, memorization, about orality and oral, about their own culture, and reflect with them about that instead of, backwards, the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Janet.
Thank you. One of the things that I found really helpful, and Chris, you touched on it. I think initially we had terms to help us move away from print on a page as the only or maybe the best form of communication, but that communication can happen in these other media, and to do that sort of recitation or word for word kind of memorization. I think the terminology, the initial, in my studies, the initial description of that was interiorization, and then it went to internalization, around performance criticism. But I agree. I think we're now, those terms are inadequate. And I really appreciate what your study is presented here, Fausto, in terms
Thank
of
you.
offering us some new terminology to talk about what happens, but also how we can improve on processes that we're helping people engage in, and in particular the encoding, storage, retrieval, and consolidation that you spoke of it, or you wrote about. I can't remember whether it first appears, but I found on page 95. So what are the memory types of memory processes in each of those stages? And the consolidation may come much later. I totally agree with that. But it is, again, a different kind of a memory tool. When we first started working with this, I read cognitive scientist Roger Schenck, and he talked about we're only as intelligent as what we can remember.
Well,
And retrieve, and I think you're touching on something there, and I'm excited to hear that you found 90% retrieval, because I think that's one of the exciting developments is as people have this in ready memory, and back to that intelligence I just mentioned. That aids then in further Bible translation, right? You mentioned this on the in the end, that consolidation and I should have marked it. I'm sorry, but it aiding future translation work in when you talk about the benefits of memorization. But I'm grateful for the types of memorizations that you describe. I'm curious, and it's just a small curiosity, but how much do people want to go back and revise what they started with? It happens in written translation that if the first book people work on is the Gospel of Mark, they want to revise the Mark before they print the New Testament because they've learned so much, right? How much do you find that happening as people improve their storytelling, more audience, community feedback, as their corpus of Bible increases? Do you face that where there's a push or a desire to go back and revise
The translation. Yeah, all the time. As the translators get more savvy, in two directions: doing Bible translation and knowledge of their own language.
Yeah.
Because something that happened in this kind of process is that they start to reflect in their own language. They don't really reflect in their languages and their features when they're just, speaking. But when they do Bible translation and they interact with others and they interact between communities that have different accents or variants of the same language, they start to reflect, okay, this is a better word to do that. Oh, no. We shouldn't, like in Mark chapter 6, and I'm talking a year after that, we didn't translate this in the right way, because now that we, seeing the whole picture that we are translating by Mark 13, we see this in a different way. So, or we found that this pronunciation is better within the communities than the pronunciation that we chose from the beginning. So as they improve in their translation skills, and as they get more knowledge about their languages, they start changing things from their translators, from translation. So,
and just briefly, would you consider that consolidation memory?
Yes.
Rob has a hand raised.
Hey, Fausto, thank you for this informative and insightful article. I have
Thank you, Rob.
a couple questions. The first is, if you can tell me typically about how many verses a translation team can process in a 2-week workshop like this, to go through your process here and translate.
Yeah, we try to keep the passages within the limits of 20 to 32 verses. We found that after 32 verses, it's really difficult for them to memorize a passage. So we keep the passages within that limit. If we go further, it's difficult to memorize within the 2 weeks workshop.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I haven't studied that, if they do the memorization outside of the workshops.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's helpful to know. And then also, you mentioned that the translators return to the communities after the workshop. They recite and teach the passages. They get feedback, and then they, when they come back in the next workshop, they talk about the feedback and make adjustments. Then I assume they have to rememorize everything and re-record everything. That seems like that would take a significant amount of chunk of time out of the next workshop. So how do you fit that in with all that revisions and re-recording and then drafting the next 20 or 30 verses?
Okay, we do that in the first day of the workshop. So the first day of the workshop, we revise all the passages, we listen to them, and then we listen to the translators and their questions and the questions of the communities. And usually we just recorded the segment that they want to change. We don't re-record the whole thing.
Okay.
And surprisingly, no. And surprisingly, they come with the whole thing memorized. So they just say, hey, we changed this. And we want to re-record the segment that said this and this and so and so. They already took the decision. We make a lot of emphasis on the translation is yours. You are the experts. Mm-hmm. So you take the decision, and we're working with you. If I found that their decision is problematic, then I say, let's talk about that. Why are you taking this decision and so on? But as the translators get more time doing this and with the community and with the text, they take less and less bad decisions. Their decisions are great. I can say that. And not just linguistically, but textual. They really take great decisions in the text as a whole. I don't know if that explains itself.
And one thing too, Rob, I haven't watched all of their workshops, but I have seen the one in Mexico several times, and they have 4 or 5 consultants that are there. It's not just Fausto having to work with all of the teams. So that can help with the process as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, Rob.
Can I ask something?
Sure, Sunil, go ahead.
First of all, I think this is a very insightful article. I really loved it.
Thank
you. You talk about a number of different types of memories, like, semantic memory, episodic, and declarative, and all others. I was just wondering, are language translators, are there any specific questions that are asked to the language translators to stimulate this kind of memory? For example, in episodic memory, how do people associate the biblical passage to their personal lives? Is there any specific questions that are asked so that that kind of thinking is stimulated? They're able to reflect on the biblical passage from that point of view, or are they just taught about these different types of memories, and then they explore the passage themselves as they know about these types of memories?
Okay. Thank you, Sunil. Good, really, really good questions. Most of these memories are stimulated by action. So we do different exercises that stimulate this type of memory. And episodic memory, depending on the passage, we do specific questions, but I have to say it's natural in some ways for the people. I first read this paper at SPL, where most of the scholars think that you are not David, and you are not Moses, and you are not Mark, and you're not Peter. You are yourself, and that happened to those people. But when you're talking with the translators, and something happened that is connected with the story, they're Peter, and they are David killing Goliath, and they are Samson, and so on. So it's natural for them. They are part of the biblical story in some ways. So for me, when I'm facilitating a passage, the most important question is that how do you identify yourself as a person that have a relationship with God within the passage? And the answer comes natural, because that's what they're thinking. That's the way they learn. Okay, how that passage relate to myself and my life? What is the practicality of this that happened in the Bible, but that is my story, and how is that affecting my life and my day to day. And in some ways it's easier because their culture has a lot of similarities with the biblical culture. You know, it's an agricultural and culture in some ways. That's the way they think. So in the case of episodic memory, they really they really connect naturally. I say the most difficult thing in some ways, the two more difficult memories to stimulate are the working memory and the semantic memory. Because we are memorizing a passage in days, while they memorize a passage in months or years. And so they have the opportunity in their community to, with whatever story that they have that is part of their culture, they have the opportunity to listen to that and decide, this is going to my long term or not. This is going now, this is going later. And that takes weeks, months, and year. And now we are asking them to be professional memorizers. So those are the two more difficult ones.
Hi.
Yes, Heather.
To follow up a little bit.
It's breaking up for me, Heather. I'm not sure if others are having difficulty hearing you.
You're talking about and how you interact with them in the appreciated hearing about the different they're evoked in the process. Are they having difficulty hearing me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Is this better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I appreciated learning about the different types of memory, but what I'm curious about is you talked about, and we've already mentioned it a little bit today, talking about explaining to people why they're doing certain things. I'm curious as to how technical you tend to get. I know you said in many cases you don't use the actual names of the types of memory, but how, when you're explaining to them why they're doing this step, how technical do you get, and how much do you actually tell them about the purpose behind? I mean, obviously it's from memory. A little bit.
I think we lost the tail end, but Fausto, I think there was enough there of the question that you can start and answer and see if it addresses everything she was looking for.
Yeah, we don't go technical. If we do that at least once, we try to tell them this is how these type of memories are called by people that study memory, and then we relate the different types of memories to different parts of the process and to their mind, because they understand that they have to put something in their minds, their body, and their postures. That's it. So we just emphasize that it's really important for them not just to listen to the passages and put it in their mind, but relate themselves with the passage, episodic, to make the gestures that they use in different kind of places is not the same when they perform within the church community is not the same. They're not allowed to do some gestures, so they have to memorize what gestures would they use at church and what gestures would they use with children and with young people. So we motivate them to practice the passages thinking on different audiences or the position of the people, because I learned that that's important. That's important too. If not, when you talk with the pastor, they're gonna change posture and probably they're gonna stop retrieving the passage. So it's learning by action in some ways, by doing, as Chris said.
Quetzal has a question.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. This meeting helped me a lot because when I started learning about oral Bible translation, I learned that translators should not memorize the passage, but should internalize it. And that is what I learned. But now, what I'm hearing is that memorization is also helpful for oral Bible translations. What I would like to know between memorization and oral Bible internalizations, are they been using both or sticks to the memorizations rather than internalization?
You mean the
And
written
according to the experience,
document?
no, oral Bible translation, internalizations and memorizations.
Okay.
I think your emphasis is more in memorizations rather than internalization. And also, according to your experience, when passage been memorized and translated, would it be natural in the language, or it's or sometimes they have a challenge of making it natural in their language and then tends to be literal?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. If I understood the first question, I don't think you can do a good memorization work without internalization. Both goes hand in hand. And maybe we need to, in some ways, get together. And there's some things that need to be defined within the OBT community.
Yeah.
What is translation? Because I don't think everybody's doing translation. And second, is internalization different than memorization, or they go together? And I think we're in a maturity part of the process, growing process of the OBT community to talk about that. So it's better. You better memorize the passage when you know the intricacies of the passages, the features of the passages, when you feel comfortable with the structure of the passage. For that, you need internalization. And I say that in some ways that and as I say in the article, internalization include different kinds of memory. You start memorizing when you're doing the internalization. So I don't think we have to exclude both of them, but we really need to set we really need to redefine this opposition that some people see in the OBT community. In my first interaction with people from other OBT projects in Zambia, in the OBT Global Gathering, I was really surprised that people say, no, it's impossible to memorize. We don't use that word within the OBT community. I was confused. I was like, oh, well, why, what, da, da, da. And there was a semantic problem more than anything.
Yeah.
I realized that we're doing the same, but we're calling it different names.
And I think too, so I have two things. I think in response to the question, it might be an order of operations thing, because it's not that they're the translators are memorizing, for example, the Spanish version. what they're doing is they're going through the process of internalizing and translating and then fixing it in it's part of the process that they're memorizing the translation in their language, not that they're translating not that they're memorizing the Spanish and then just doing word for word inside that process. So I think, Fausto, you mentioned, that there's disagreement on that word, memorization versus internalization. And I think prior to this conversation, because I was in a meeting just before this where that came up and it was like, well, no, it's different, internalization versus memorization. And so I think that this conversation has been helpful because I think in my mind, memorization it's a literate thing that is word for word, and I have to repeat back every single word in order for it to be memorization. And so I think if we remove that, and if we think like what you've been talking about the cognitive effects of memory, that this process of internalization and embodying the text, I think is a much better way of thinking of memorization than the literate wrote word for word. I have to get every word right, or it's not reflective. Because a lot of times when literate focused people talk about memorization, it's about making sure you're getting every single word right, and that's not how oral. Because there's been a lot written about how oral cultures can retell something with accuracy, but if somebody were to look at it and say, well, I'm comparing word for word, it's not the same thing that he told last time. But it is, culturally, it is considered accurate. And so it's a different expectation of what memorization is. And so I think that what you've talked about in this article and what Chris Adams talks about embodied hermeneutics, I think it's much more about getting the text into you and having that embodied memory and an embodied experience with it, I think is a helpful way to think about it. Janet.
I totally agree, but I also like how Faustus included in this that it is a collectively owned. I think that's part of um the flexibility of retelling is within the sort of this group learning, this collective decision on it's this but not that sense. And so when we talk about it not being, say, word perfect, but the process done in a group with peer perspectives and others, giving examples and connecting it to other places in the Bible, connecting it to our lives, connecting it and addressing questions. We need more information about thus and such to let this make sense. That peer process, that collective, I think is crucial.
Yeah, and I think someone made me a question long ago after reading this article about what place textual criticism, what is the place of textual criticism in this? Do you use that and so on? And reflecting on that, I'm not going to talk about it, but reflecting on that, what is accuracy? Because when you're talking about textual criticism and you see the difference in some texts is that, it happens the same when we're doing our Bible translation. I was reading the Mark chapter 11 this morning from the Greek New Testament, and in verse 24, it says, believe oti elávete. And also, okay, believe that you receive it already, it's an aorist. And then I was listening to the Byzantine text, and they say lambanete. So it's that you have received it. And that's a big difference when you go to interpretation, because you receive it already. Are you going to receive it? Are you receiving that through time and so on? So I think it happened in the text. That's a problem you cannot resolve. We're dealing with that. It will happen in orality. Yeah. And so this kind of mindset where we want to fix the text is an illusion. In some ways. We have to, in some ways, be accurate, that no excuse, but it will happen. People will say things in another tense. People will change the order of words. Yeah. And that will cause variance in the text. It happened throughout the history of Christianity with the text, with the written text. So it will happen in orality, and we have to make the peace with that.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. So I want to mention that it is we have been talking for an hour. So if you have to go, I understand. We appreciate you being here with us. If you are available to continue the conversation, I'm happy to continue talking. I don't know how much longer Fausto can be with us, but we will stay and continue talking until there is no further discussion. I do want to mention that next month we'll be reading The Role of Holistic Exegesis in Assuring Quality in Multimodal Translation by Brian Harmelink, and that will be on July 31st. I'll send out an email with the article and the link as well. But I just wanted to mention that it is the hour, so if you have to go, we understand. But if not, we would be happy to continue the conversation.
Yeah, I can stay for another 50 minutes.
Okay, right. While people are thinking, I want to mention that I really appreciate it's on page 94. Orality is not just words. It's also intonation, which can indicate emotions, pause, volume, intensity, or the levels of meaning gained by using different voices in a narrative. And I think that is just beautiful. I mean, just saying that it's so much more than just the words. And so I wonder, how do you facilitate that in memory? In one of these projects, or say, for example, a workshop, how do you encourage the team to remember those kinds of things? And was it natural when you first started, or was there a lot of encouragement to work on that? I don't know if that's a clear question, but
the answer is yes. You have to encourage that, but it's natural, because intensity, volume, pause, and so on is not necessarily cultural inclusive. It's like some cultures varies in the way they say things and the way they emphasize something. So sometimes when I see that the storytelling is flat, I try to tell them, okay, let's say you go to the market. And in the market, you need to emphasize that it's onion that you like. How would you say that? You say, it is onion that I like, or that I want, or something else. And those questions help. I try to connect the at least the kind of feature, talking about intonation, pause, volume, etc., that I think is part of the passages with what they really use in colloquial language, and that helps. That really helps.
Thank you. Because
sometimes the problem that and that's the reason we have to motivate and encourage. The problem is that in some cultures, and that's actually imposed from outside, they come with this mindset that the Bible cannot be read using different type of intonation. And and especially some mainstream churches have imposed that into indigenous people. And when they come to the worship, they need to learn that that's not okay. That you need the intonation, pausing, volume is part of language. It's part of the way they talk, and it goes with a better understanding of the Bible. Actually, can change the way you perceive your translation. We have this experience. I think I mentioned that in this article. I don't remember. It was in another article with a team that finished their translation. They were translating the Bible for 15 years, and then it was the time for recording that. Before they did the typesetting and everything, it was ready to print. When they start reading the text, doing, using the different features that they have in orality, they say, oh no, this is not a good translation. We don't speak like that. And the translation is on hold. It's ready in some part of the world to be printed. Someone donated that money, and they say we need to rework it.
Yeah. Because
now reading the text out loud, we realize we don't speak like that.
Yeah.
We don't say things like that. There's a comma that should be there. There's a point. The syntax should be different. We use that word for connection. So I think that saying things out loud with this different feature helps to understand the text better, and it will be useful for written translation to let the translators to read the text.
Yeah.
Before saying yes, this is good.
Yeah, in Mexico, that's part of the process. They have to record the New Testament before they can publish the printed version. Rob has a hand raised. Sorry, my cat is attacking me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so speaking of the re-recording, according to your article, it looks like during the workshop, they record in relatively small passages or segments. So it seems like the recording would not be, at least the workshop recording, wouldn't be real smooth. And it seems like you would need to re-record for a final, polished recording. So I'm wondering, what is the process that you generally recommend that they follow for that re-recording, or that final recording?
Yeah, we do that recording at the end of the 3 years or 4 years process. So we have these different stages where for 3 years we translate different stories from the Bible. And then the next 3 years, if we get funds, we translate a couple books or one book of the Bible. So at the end of those 3 years, we made the professional recording, because we found out that if they have at least in the first 3 years, if they have a professional recording from the beginning, they won't memorize the passage. But if we do that at the end of the first 3 years, they're okay with memorizing and doing a professional recording, because now they see the benefit of a storytelling. Then they see that the benefit is not for the community, it's for themselves. Because when you embody the passage, you get a better discernment of the passage from beginning to end. So that's what we do at the end of the 3 years.
So it's one of the translators then who memorizes longer sections of the recording and then records those longer sections. Is that what you're saying?
No, when we do the professional recording, they record the whole thing without segmentation from beginning to end. In the workshop, we rotate the translators. So one translate one passage, another translate other passage, and so on. But all of the translators have to learn all the passages. So we don't assign one passage to this translator and one to this other one. They have to learn the whole thing. So segmentation for the recording within the workshops, it will depend on the team decision. And usually that has to be with intricacies of their own languages. Something that we're working with the program that we use ABTT. So something that we're working now is to see ways to move segments. Because sometimes they record a segment that it's not proportional to the audio in Spanish because they use a different order in that a specific verse, and you can have 3-4 segments per verse depending of how long is the verse. So now we want the capacity to, record following the Spanish, but with the capacity to resegment, so they can follow the order they will naturally have in their language.
Okay, so are you saying then that the translator will memorize the entire book and record the entire book from memory for the final recording?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a question, Fausto. In your description of the project, you mentioned performance. The translators who also serve as storytellers rehearse the memorized passages, and then just now you were saying that all the translators learn the whole thing. My question would be, is there any place on a team for someone who's going to be a translator but not be a storyteller? Because I think about in our own personal project, we had people who were definitely a part of the translation. They served a very important role, but they never recorded. They would not want to be the one whose voice was recorded, just because it was not. He was a man of few words, but whenever we had a difficulty finding a word, he was always the one. Rob, you might remember Anselmo. He was the one that always had the words that nobody else knew what we should be, because he was the elder on our team. And so whenever somebody had a difficulty of finding how do we express this, he almost always was the one who could come up with something that nobody else knew. But he would never be the one that was going to record or tell the translation.
No, we don't have the space for someone that is not going to do a storytelling. Why? Well, we tell the community that we need people that are capable to do that. Not everybody's good at that at the beginning, but I can tell you different cases of people that were really shy and men or women of small word, and now they are, wow, excellent performers and storyteller. There's a transformation in some people. May we consider in the future to divide a team in? We haven't considered that because we want them to teach that to the community too.
Okay.
That is important for us.
Yeah, Janet.
It's exciting to hear that, and as I think in your question, Chris, that's an interesting one. I go back to Fausto talking about the performance is as much about how it impacts the team that's working on the translation as it is about scripture engagement and sharing. And that's kind of one of the requirements we use as well, is that everyone will tell it, but some people will probably never stand up in church and tell it. Maybe they only ever do sort of informal with their family or with a neighbor. So I'm excited to hear that presentation, Fausto, that we're not talking about doing this so we can facilitate scripture engagement fast, but we're doing it because the actual practice and the discipline has a big impact on the team who are working on the translation.
Yeah. Can I show a brief storytelling from different translators so you can see?
Yeah.
This is from the Guatemalan process. This is she's Leslie from the Mam de Todos Santos project. She wasn't a Christian. She became a Christian through listening to the passage. And this is Gabriel from Ichil.
Kuebal estekuen az anima nishteken el tuche tets wila malqi ech az ushep u a arimatea malvina as atil.
I don't know if you can hear like a pause between words, like that's part of their language. And this is Primo. He's a pastor from the Sipa Capensa.
Allah khunchiwa which lal Señor kulmnem chirratre re Jesus kutrib shalrib chkurikep keep inikip enak perkchek rikashi tsalhul shekilo chkwonkah no kerenkah kashkinmach chirratre Jesus shkutrib chirlachuch khun.
You can see it's more like preaching.
Riket tokre ki wik churimesh.
That's part of his ways of as a pastor. These three specific translators weren't that good at the beginning, doing their storytelling, and I'm proud of them. It's like, they naturally have this way of storytell a passage in their language using, different features of orality, pausing, volume. In some places like Gabriel, a specific way of pausing between words that are part of their language, but their gestures too is impressive. And going to the community and seeing that other people can do that is really rewarding.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Well, thank you, Fausto. This has been great. I know that you have to go, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But just to say thank you for writing the article. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for being willing to come and talk with us. This has been just a really great opportunity to interact with it. I hope more people will read it and we can talk more about it on other occasions. But thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.